What is going on, fellow card collectors? And boy, do I have an exciting video for you guys today. But before I get too far into it, I'll backtrack a little bit. So this was a project that I embarked upon about a year and a half ago, and I just completed it today. It should have taken me a lot longer than a year and a half, but I pretty much hit the lottery in a sense with the last card I needed, and I'll kind of go into that story in a little bit as I show. But yeah, this project was insane. It's 6 cards total. Um, 2 of them were pretty easy to acquire. It was just 2 T206 Southern Leaguers. But the other 4 were insanely tough. I mean, I'm talking total pop reports of like 10 or less. 2 of them were a pop 1 on PSA. 1 of them was a pop 0 on PSA. The only ones known were with SGC or Raw, obviously, but I knew this was going to be insanely hard. I thought that the last 4 cards I needed to complete this were going to be the types of cards you only find at the National. So I had these as my National Chase cards this year, so now I don't really know what to go after when I go, but we'll figure that out later. But today's video is probably going to be my favorite video on my channel, just because of the local hometown connection that I have with these 6 cards. So I'm going to deep dive into a bunch of information. A lot of it might not be relevant to you or where you live, but I hope you still find it cool. I hope you stick around for the whole thing, because this project is awesome and it took a lot of time, effort, and money and sacrifice. I had to give up a few cards to complete this, but that's okay, because the ones I parted with, I didn't have near the connection that I have with these now. So I'm going to get the camera turned around and we are going to go through this project step by step. All right, guys, and as you can see set up already, we have the T206s of Ed Foster and Dutch Jordan. Now, I know y'all have seen these before, and you've heard me say that both of these guys played on a low-level minor league team in my hometown of Brunswick, Georgia. So I was set out to acquire all the cards that these guys are known to have. But throwing it back a little bit to 1906, my hometown of Brunswick hosted a minor league team that was in the Class D Georgia State League. And on June 25th, 1906, the Columbus River Snipes in Columbus, Georgia, moved over to Brunswick. Midway through the season, they had a 24-16 record when they moved. They went 5-1 after they landed in Brunswick. So they finished the 1906 season with a 29-17 record. The league that year consisted of teams from Waycross, Cordele, Valdosta, Americus, and Albany. So all towns that are pretty close by to where I live. But after that 1906 season, that league fizzled out until it was reborn again in 1913. It was really just an early attempt at starting a professional league in a very early, unstable environment of professional baseball in South Georgia. But after looking at the roster that 1906 season, I found out that Ed Foster played on the team. So like I said, I was set out to acquire all of his cards that he is known to have, which are the T206. I've got the Old Mill SGC3 there, beautiful copy. The next one I had to acquire was the T210 Old Mill. He is in the Series 8 in this set, which is the toughest out of the 8. This is in a PSA 4. This card is extremely scarce. When I say extremely scarce, it is a total pop of 4. There's only 1 graded by PSA. There's 3 graded by SGC. So you can imagine how long it took to acquire that one. And then speaking about scarce, we have his last card that I had to acquire, which is the T211 Red Sun. Now these cards are super scarce. If you're looking for a specific subject, I mean, it could take you years to find one. I got lucky. A fellow Facebook group member had this one and was willing to part with it. These cards are awesome, though. Probably the most beautiful cigarette advertisement back on any tobacco card issue out there. It's pretty funny, though, because this says first series, so it looks like they were planning on producing more, but then none were ever made past the first series. The first series just covered the Southern Association, so teams like New Orleans Pelicans, Atlanta Crackers, Chattanooga. And it's pretty funny, too, because Ed Foster never played for the New Orleans Pelicans, so it's pretty odd how he's pictured on that team in his T210 and T211. But A little bit more about Ed Foster. Ed Foster was nicknamed Slim, and in 1908, Nap Lajoie's Cleveland Naps were dealing with a bunch of injuries that took out their star pitchers like Addie Joss, Glenn Leibhart, and Heine Berger. So Ed Foster was called up to the team where he made only one start, but he did collect a major league win. He also made 5 relief appearances for the Cleveland Naps that year, giving him a combined 21 big league innings under his belt and a 2.14 ERA. Before that small stint in the majors, he did play for the Charleston Seagulls in 1907 and the Jacksonville Jays in 1908, where he posted a 13-2 record. So that must have been what kind of got him noticed by Cleveland. But obviously, my favorite part of Ed Foster's career is in 1906, before he went on to play for Charleston and Jacksonville and ultimately Cleveland as well. He did play for the Brunswick River Snipes in my hometown of Brunswick, Georgia, in the first year of the new Georgia State League, which, like I said, fizzled out after that 1 year, but was reborn again in 1913. So moving on to 1913, when the league was reborn, they had a meeting in Brunswick about rebirthing the league. So there was a few stipulations. They limited teams to 12-man rosters. Nobody could have any experience in higher up professional leagues, and team salaries were capped at $1,000 for the season. Teams were permitted to travel by rail, and there were no games allowed on Sundays. And Brunswick, who were the River Snipes before, renamed the team to the Pilots, which derived from the pilot boats that guide the big cargo ships into the port of Brunswick. We have a pretty big port here in town, so hence the name Pilots. And in their first season, 1913, Brunswick finished last with a record of 42-57, 16 and a half games behind the Valdosta Millionaires. But in their second season, they acquired a new manager, which was Mr. Dutch Jordan here. He served as a player manager during the second season. The Empire State League was renamed back to the Georgia State League. Brunswick placed 4th that 1914 season with Dutch Jordan serving as the manager. They were 5.5 games behind first place Cordele. So after finding out that he was on the roster that second year of the rebirth of the Georgia State League, I was set out to, again, acquire all cards that he is known to have. So next one after his T206, which I already had, was the T210 Old Mill. Again, he's in Series 8 in this set as well, pictured with the Atlanta Crackers. This card, extremely scarce. It's a Pop 7. There's only 1 graded by PSA, and this is it. There's 6 graded by SGC. So again, you can assume how long that took me to track down. And then rounding it all off with probably the most scarce card that will be in my collection for the remainder of time. This is his T211 Red Sun. Beautiful, beautiful example. This is a Pop 6. There's none graded on PSA. There's only 6 on SGC. The ones that are on SGC are pretty low grade. I think this one will do very well. I'm probably going to send it to PSA, but the story behind this one is crazy. So as I had already had the T210s and I was just looking for the Red Suns of Foster and Jordan, I put out a bunch of posts on Facebook, the Reddit Tobacco Cards group, just saying, you know, be on the lookout for these 2 cards. I need them to complete a very special project. And I found the Ed Foster pretty quickly, but I was kind of giving up on the Dutch Jordan. I thought this card was going to take me years to track down. I thought it was going to be one of those cards that, you know, you really only find at the National. But lo and behold, somebody reached out to me with a photo of one that he had. And this guy was a type collector, so he was trying to collect, you know, a couple cards from each tobacco and caramel set. And he pulled out his checklist that he had started in the 90s, and the card that he had acquired for the T211 Red Sun line on his checklist just so happened to be the Dutch Jordan. And, you know, I instantly said, like, you know, I would love to try to make a deal. I totally understand if you want to keep it. Like, these things are so few and far between and hard to find. But he understood the value of the project and what it meant to me to complete this. So he said that he was willing to part with it and that this was only going to be like the first or second card he's sold in like 30 years. So shout out to him for allowing me to complete this very, very hard project. You don't know how much it means to me. So it is in good hands. I promise you, it is not going anywhere. It is, both of these are going to be graded, but that's the only place they're going. They're going right back into the display case once they get back. But Yeah, so Dutch Jordan managed the Brunswick Pilots that second season, and they finished fourth that year. And then in the final season, 1915, the Georgia State League evolved into the Georgia, Florida, and Alabama League. Brunswick ended that season with a 36-37 record, placing fourth overall again. They were in the finals that year, and the Valdosta Millionaires were leading the Brunswick Pilots 2-1 when the series abruptly ended due to a player strike and ultimately causing the demise of the league once again. And it was never reborn after that. So super cool. And then a little bit more about Dutch Jordan. He played some professional ball as well. He was called up to the Brooklyn Superballs in 1903 after 2 seasons with the Binghamton Bingos in the New York State League. He played 2 seasons with Brooklyn, batting .208 and 519 at-bats. He primarily played second base, found himself playing a little bit of first and third for Brooklyn, but those 2 years with Brooklyn were the extent of his major league career. However, after that 2-year stint, he did go on to play 10 more seasons of minor league ball, which mainly consisted with time spent on the Atlanta Crackers from 1905 to 1911. And then he moved over to Chattanooga for a year and Memphis for a year. Yeah, ultimately found himself managing the Brunswick Pilots in 1914, which is in my hometown. So I had to be sure to acquire all the cards that he collected. But guys, I know this is kind of a long video. It was a bunch of history of my hometown, which I know some of you might not find interesting because you don't live here or around here, but that is the story behind why I was set out to complete this project and needed these 6 cards. But super thankful that it is complete now. Like I said, I'm going to get both of those sent off for grading. I'm probably going to do both of them PSA. Might do the express grading just so they get back in time. I got both of those cards for a great deal, so spending a little bit of extra money on the grading to get them back in time won't really bug me too much. But guys, thank you so much for tuning into this video, and like always, stay tuned for the next one. Peace.